Great, welcome everybody to our West County Concilio Latino meeting for today, Friday, April the 21st. And the Concilio Latino is a network for individuals and organizations working with the Latino community in West Contra Costa County, which meets monthly to identify needs, share resources, information, and advocate for gaps in services for the Latino community at the local, state, and federal levels, and specifically address the needs of the monolingual Spanish-speaking community. Concilio Latino partners with coalitions of diverse and civil and human rights organizations to advocate and participate in activities, events, and movements towards social justice for all underserved, underrepresented, and targeted communities. We also recognize that we're presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karken, Ohlone peoples, and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. So thank you very much. And we are very excited to have our guests here and talk about the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. That's part of the County Board of Supervisors. And we've got some great presenters here, speakers who will introduce themselves. And I'll start with Kirby. Welcome.
Thank you. And man, just thank you for having us here. And, you know, we really see y'all as comrades in the struggle to achieve racial equity and social justice in Contra Costa County. So today we have a presentation about what the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice is, what it's aimed to do, and also just to give you a little bit of background to the process of how this office came to be, since it at the inception was a community-driven, community-led, community-fought-for office design model, and got two of my most esteemed colleagues, comrades, sister warriors in the struggle, who are going to help me co-present the information. So I'll start with some introductions to those two folks, and then I'll take us away. So Ms. Isabel, you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kirby. My name is Isabel Lara. I am a resident of Concord, and I've been very active in social justice work for many years. And this work with the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice is a gift to our community, and I'm so proud to be a part of the core committee. Thank you.
Awesome. And Sonia?
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. My name is Sonia Bustamante. I'm Chief of Staff for Supervisor Joya, who is one of the two equity committee members who've been championing the work to set up the office. And I've had the pleasure and privilege of being the representative on the core committee, that is the community-based committee of folks who've been mainly driving most of this work. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's get this party started. Perfect. So yes, we're here today to just do somewhat of a community cafe. You know, we really want to get a lot of your questions answered and really hear from you what you believe an Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice should be doing in the county. We are in a very critical phase right now where we're implementing the office. So your feedback and your thoughts and concerns are really helpful to move the process forward. So again, just thank you all for having us here. So just a little bit of background. So again, my name is Dr. Kirby Lynch. I'm a part of an organization known as Series Policy Research, and we serve as the project management support to help and guide and just really give support to this 15-member community advisory body known as the Core Committee. And this is a group of community activists, resident leaders, direct service advocacy organizations who have been, again, since November 2020, leading the charge to create this Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. So some background. There was a board vote by the Board of Supervisors in the county in November 2020, and they wrote a resolution to establish this community engagement process to determine the goals and the priorities for this office. right? So this is coming after the uprisings in 2020, the racial reckoning, the pandemic. The Board of Supervisors took a stand and said, hello, we need to actually listen to the community about how they want to make our county more racially equitable. And there had been a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the county previously, but again, none of it was really focused on having it be guided and designed and kind of led by residents. And so the November 2020 resolution is kind of like our North Star. And so that's how we went to work. The first part of the work was, again, getting a host table together of BIPOC residents, organizations, and allies to start figuring out the game plan for how to do this community engagement process. So there was a pretty large host table of many organizations. And then we started to do listening sessions in March 2021 throughout the county to start understanding, okay, what are the needs in the community? What are the pain points? Where are the gaps? And those listening sessions became the data set that really guided our core committee to start going deeper into, okay, how do we take this information from the listening sessions and start designing this office to work for everyone? So again, the host table reorganized into a core committee to implement phase 2. So we were being guided by a broader set of community organizations. Then we had a very intimate group of about 15 people starting to guide the next steps, right? So that's where Isabel and Miss Sonia really came in. And where kind of series came in and the process is, a lot of the groundwork was again established by community, but we came in to support the data analysis process. This has been a pretty rigorous process of taking the information for community and really making use of it. We're not just trying to take information from community for community's sake, but we wanted to again guide the steps forward. So our community engagement process entailed various aspects. So again, we did 40 listening sessions with over 400 participants, and that was conducted between March and 2021. From our listening sessions, we actually designed a survey that went countywide, and we collected over 600 responses from people countywide about their experiences in the county, especially with harm that they had experienced by interacting with county systems. The great aspect of our countywide survey is that the majority of the people who responded were people of color. And what's even more shocking is that over 1,000 of the respondents were from the African American Black community, and we had over 400 responses from the Latinx community specifically. And so the power of this data set is that we can really start getting deep into what community feels what. We did a lot of district by district analysis. We were able to see what are the experiences of people in District 1 with systemic racism that they experience in the county. What are the experiences of people in District 2, District 3? So that's the richness of our data set, where we get to start kind of planning priorities for our action when the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice starts. So our community survey really did start to inform a lot of the recommendations we were going to propose to the Board of Supervisors in October 2022. And so we made a set of recommendations based on our survey, based on the listening sessions, about the ideal office structure for the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. And we did community cafes in East County, West County, North County, Central County, with over 300 people to get affirmation, to get responses to our model for the office. And that's how we finally was able to move forward to the Board of Supervisors with a proposal for this office that was unanimously voted on in October 2022, that they passed it and that they accept our vision and our desires for the Office of Racial Equity. But before we go too deep into the plan for the office, I did want to pass it to Isabel to talk about some of the important insights from our community survey, because again, we're hearing from our community what the pain points are. So Ms. Isabel, you want to take us away?
Thank you very much. And we were very intentional on reaching out to the community members who may not have access to a computer or families who were suffering from discrimination, but they didn't know what to do or where to go. We went out and reach out those families. So I'd love to share what we heard from them. Recibo muchos insultos en casi todos los sistemas debido a mi estatus migratorio. That was the comment of one of the families. Go ahead. It was hard to get a job in proper shelter for me and my family because of our color. Once we settled, I found a school for them, but they were always bullied and treated as if they were lesser than human. That affected us both psychologically and emotionally. Mental health care is expensive and not affordable. It is not covered by insurance, so it's near impossible to get. They say I make too much money to qualify for low-cost resources. However, living expenses take up what I make, so it's a lose-lose. He experimentado discriminación en la fuerza laboral debido a mi estado parental. He encontrado específicamente que los hombres y las personas sin hijos son los empleados preferidos. Es muy difícil para las personas con niños competir con empleados que pueden dedicar más de 60 horas a la semana en un puesto exento.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for reading our community responses to our survey. And really, those responses become our North Star, the fire to really make sure this office works for everyone and that it's not a vanity project for the county, that it's actually something that serves the needs of the people. So thank you, Isabel. And is there anything else you want to say about the process? Or are you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. I know you have to leave in a bit, but and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sonia, who is our brains around how these county processes work, and they're going to share more specifically about the functions of the office.
Thank you. So this again is reflective of feedback and input based on the surveys that were taken from the community, based on input and feedback from, host table members and the core committee. And so this, just to remind us all that every process that we go to in every phase is all informed by the research that was done by the community in this planning process. And this planning process was also, I just want to say, was reinforced by the Board of Supervisors, that they really wanted to see a robust community process as well. So this is also in partnership. So the core functions of this office would be, one, to increase education resources and policies to address structural racism and its impact on community residents. And I think it's really important here that it's calling out the structural racism. If you read the report, white supremacy is spelled out there. This is really, we have to be really honest and real in our wording, and verbiage is really important to start to really reckon and heal, right? And so this may be sort of jarring for some folks to see this coming from also government documents, but we're going to start seeing more and more of this language called out. And then also to assess, support, and coordinate racial equity work within the county, across county agencies and departments. So there's going to be an external function and an internal function. Next slide, please. So this is the goal of the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice: to enact and sustain principles, policies, practices, and investments that are racially just and equitable across all of its departments and divisions. And this is, again, endorsed in a partnership with the supervisors. Okay, Kirby, advance. So this is really exciting for me because with all the planning and research and work to get input from community members, we get to the priorities for years 1 to 3, which means we're starting our implementation phase, right? We're going to start to really, build this office to something tangible. So establishing an interdepartmental team across county departments, we feel like that's really important. This was also taken from research that we did with other offices in other counties. And we know that interdepartmental teams creates some unity, creates teamwork, it gets everybody sort of on the same page working together. So this group will assess and coordinate racial equity efforts across the county. And this is also intended to be in consultation with the core committee and with the community, right? 2, to set a safe, welcoming, and belonging culture in Contra Costa County. As you saw from the quotes before, and a lot of us have experienced, it doesn't feel welcoming and belonging, even for folks who have been here for many generations. And so this is really, a bold vision that the community is putting forth. Next slide. Thanks. Build capacity to establish trust across race, ethnicity, income, immigration status, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and beyond. This isn't limited to these things, but it's really just trying to call out the diversity of our communities and what was identified through the surveys as people feeling like they were targeted for some of these, diverse traits that they had. Conduct a landscape analysis of racial injustice. Next slide. Review the extent to which county budget allocations are aligned with equity and social justice principles to address root causes of inequality. And this is a practice that has been done in the past, not necessarily always with racial equity, but there's been budgets that want to call out, the impact on families, the impact on children. Contra Costa County had that years ago. So to review and be accountable to how this impacts our communities based on race is really, really important. Again, this is built into a lot of these priorities is accountability and building that foundation. Review and promote policies within county agencies that achieve equity, fairness, and opportunity for all. So this is really guiding all of the work that's going to take place in these first 3 years. Next slide. 3. Okay, I'm gonna pass it back to you and you can talk about more of our phase of what we're doing right now with our recruitment process.
No, thank you so much, Sonia, for breaking down the priorities for years 1, 2, 3, because it's all about feasibility. It's all about making sure we're accountable to community and moving the work forward. So that is what you can expect from us. And it could be more than that too, especially given your input that how do we make those 6 points really come to life and serve various things that are going on in the county, right? So the first so just to update, so we passed all of our recommendations, years 1, 2, 3 priorities, our goals, our write-up of our findings, and the Board of Supervisors was receptive. Many of you may have been at that Board of Supervisor meetings. I mean, that was a transformative moment in itself, October 2022, when they were coming to grips and to consciousness that this is what the people want in this county. So we really feel like it's a time to be alive right now, and it's the opportunity for all hands on deck and for all voices to be a part of the process. And so we are now in a phase 3 of our community engagement process. So the phase 1 was the listening sessions, getting organizations together. Phase 2 was doing the survey and then researching models nationwide to come up with the perfect kind of format and function of the office. And now phase 3 is implementation. And the first part of our implementation is to actually hire these new department heads to run the office. So structurally, the office is actually its own kind of department and entity. It's not sitting under anybody else's office. It's actually its own thing that reports directly to the Board of Supervisors. So with that being said, the department heads for these offices are going to report directly to the Board of Supervisors and be appointed by the Board of Supervisors. So we're now in the process right now to do the first hiring for the office. And so something unique about our office is that it'll have two department heads, which does not happen in the county. So we are in the process of hiring two directors, one that's going to be focused on internal affairs in the county and supporting racial equity efforts that are occurring and making sure everything's moving forward, that we have metrics and benchmarks to really hold ourselves accountable 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line to disparities that are occurring in our community. So that's one director. Then we have another director that's focused on community engagement and really being boots on the ground with our folks in community-based organizations who are doing grassroots organizers and will be like the interface to the public and our community about what the office does and what resources are out there. So we'll have two department heads working together with the inside and outside strategy. And, we really find this to be a real innovation to the racial equity and social justice offices that we've seen nationwide. So really, this is the first phase of our implementation work. And another unique part of the process is that it's going to be community driven. The county is actually allowing for community members to serve on a hiring panel for these director positions. So the core committee members who have been a part of this process from its inception, who have been a part of crafting the recommendations, are now having a seat at the table with HR, the county administrator, to actually identify who would be the best candidates for the office and for our community. And so you're looking at a graph right now of what that process entails. And so, we are being a part of the job description development. We're working with HR again to figure out how do we recruit, how do we make the job be open to everyone, not just have it be an internal hiring promotion process, that we want to hire leaders throughout the county who have been showing up year after year, and how do we bring them into the county structure? How do we make an interview process that's open to community, where finalists can engage in the community? So we are really thinking through a new kind of hiring model that the county should, continue on even long after we're gone. So we are innovating the county and how they do things constantly. And that's the beauty of this process. All right. So be on the lookout for this co-director recruitment process. We hope to be engaging all of the different districts when those directors become finalists. And a huge part of our success is that we also get to set the candidate rubric for what considers to be a most qualified candidate. Here are our values on the right about what we consider to be a strong candidate and a strong leader in our community. So that's powerful. It's not based on some arbitrary and like standard rubric that the county uses. It's based on what the community wants to see in a leader. So this is again a part of our commitment to keeping the community involved and keeping this community led. And then after we hire the directors, a lot of those priorities, years 1, 2, 3, will start to be implemented. We have recommendations for a full staff of 12. A part of that is a language equity coordinator, a participatory budget coordinator, a reparations and reconciliation coordinator. So we have many different positions that we want to hire to staff the office, and those recommendations were approved by the Board of Supervisors in October 2022. So we're on a roll and we're here in the implementation phase, and really seek your partnership to spread the word about the good work, and again, give us feedback about what you would like to see. And that's pretty much the end of our presentation, but want to remind you of our commitments to you all, our commitments to the community. When we are in our core committee meetings, we're 15 people representing many thousands of people in this county, but we're 15 people committed to real change, real outcomes in our community. So here's kind of like our list of commitments that we remind ourselves of constantly. And one I want to highlight for us all, and that should empower us to give feedback to the system, is that we recognize that we are the systems and the systems are us, and that we basically have to be the change we want to see in the world. Many people say you can't change the county and the system, but we can change the county with with our persistence, with our passion, with our diligence, with our research, and with our dedication to seeing something different in the county. So these are our commitments, and I'll stop the slideshow here, but really do want to get into a conversation, answer any questions you all have about where we're going and anything that you need us to clarify. I'm going to race in Ms. Consuelo, the report we did. So we produced about a 74-page report, kind of just detailing our process. So that's a really amazing document, just so you can learn more about us, but even learn locally how you can start these racial equity conversations in your jurisdictions, in your departments. Racial equity is a movement countywide. It doesn't matter what department. We're all going to be moving on one same accord. So we're here to support a lot of the thinking around that as well. So thank you all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. Oh, okay. We've had some people join us. So before we move on, let's introduce them. Miriam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning and happy Friday. I'm Miriam Morantes. I'm with Health Services Equity Team. Happy to be here. And thank you so much for the presentation, Sonia and Kirby. I appreciate just having the latest updates. So hope everyone's doing well.
Great. Thank you, Miriam. And we didn't introduce ourselves. I'm Consuelo Lara. I've been facilitating this group for about 5 years. And and also Madeline, can you introduce yourself also?
Yeah, I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and I wear a lot of hats, but here I run the Zoom and sort of take care of the back end tech, and I represent the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County, who are very interested in all things regarding racial justice and supporting the people of West Contra Costa.
Very good. So, you know, I'm a retired teacher. I was on the school board. Now I'm on the County Board of Education. And just knowing that the issues are institutional, because people come and go, well-meaning people, and you still have the same problems. So it's institutionalized inequities that and clearly that is what this office is going to be looking at. And for me, the hardest thing is to deal with people that say, well, what's the problem? You know, and they just want to maintain the status quo because the harms are so invisible to some people. And how do we, you know, bring that up without, yeah, that's kind of where I am. Because I feel like I have this platform, I want to use it. And this is, you know, wonderful resource for me. But yeah, that's the kind of the thing that, and I see, especially kids, young people suffering. But I don't other people see that. So that's kind of where I am about all this. And I see this is very useful. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about that. Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, can I just jump in here and give my, because this is the exact question that a lot of us are grappling with, and how do you start to give credence to the stories that a lot of people have that say, no, I'm experiencing this, and other people saying, well, I don't see that, right? And so I think one of the first things that I think we've all decided is, and reflected in, I think, the priorities and the commitments, is to echo these experiences that folks are having and calling it out, right? And giving credence and believing people and saying, you know, when somebody says, I was treated badly at, you know, the school district office, you know, or at a school, or and I believe it was because of my limited English or because of my race, instead of saying, well, you know, I don't see that, or, oh, this must be this individual. It's like, let's look at, you know, the culture of how we are, you know, addressing these things, And it's the same with the county. I think there's a lot of great people who work in our county. I mean, dedicated, committed people. There's also, we've got some cultural issues, and so how do we as an institution take responsibility? And I think this is what the Board of Supervisors are saying. It's like, we're going to take responsibility for this. Whether it's something that I personally experienced or not is irrelevant, right? The fact that folks are feeling this way, the fact that there are so many people for generations saying, we felt unwelcomed here and we feel like we don't belong. And we're getting this feedback from the very institutions that are saying they're trying to help us. That's a big problem. We're not doing our jobs as the county, delivering the services the way we're supposed to. And so I think this is just one step of us saying we're taking accountability and responsibility. I would also just say, that we have in a recent example of what's happening in Antioch right now with the police department and those text messages that have come out, right? And there have been complaints, formal and informal, for a very long time about many of our cities in the county, not just Antioch, many of our cities. And so to bring it here to these types of forums, right, for the leadership to say, we recognize that this is occurring. What can we do to support those folks who are feeling so harmed and traumatized by this, to back them up and asking. And that's why we went straight to folks who we know have felt the brunt of those impacts, right? What do you want? What do you need? Let us help you lift your voice up to the decision makers so that you're really, part of this process of a solution. So I think that's some of what I can say is as to what we're doing as individuals, and both trying to really bring these voices to the decision-making table is so important. People with lived experiences being at a decision-making table and part of the decision-making process. And that has to be very, very intentional. That's not something that I'll say county government is great at doing, and we haven't been doing very much of it, but we're seeing a lot more of it because our leadership is buying into that idea. And I think, I'm so glad Miriam's here because our health department is one of those departments that's really, been doing a lot of work on this and going inward and analyzing their practices and decision-making processes and going, wait a minute, what are we missing here? Let's start to involve people with actual lived experiences that may give us some real good insight on how to make our systems better. So that's what we're doing as a government system. That's what we're doing as individuals, I would say. I don't know, Kirby, Isabel, if you want to add into that, that's what my response would be.
Thank you, Sonia. Anyone else?
I'd like to add that when we started going out to the community members, what I witnessed was the shock in the community members when they heard that we wanted to hear their thoughts and their experiences. And the first thing that we heard was the distrust in the systems, in any systems. And they kind of like, they would say to us, are you kidding me? What are you going to do with this information? You're going to ask us and then leave and you'll never come back. Thankfully, I am a community leader I have been for many years. And so people know that wherever I show up, I do my best to deliver. And that's why it's so important to continue to work with the community and be transparent. I noticed that many of the people that I served throughout the years, they're not literate. So I went to some of them, and something that this project did is allowed us to have printed copies of the survey in Spanish. So having the time to speak with a community member and also write down their answers because they had plenty to say. Just nobody listened. And until, we got there. And I think that is what makes it the survey so, and the information so valuable because we're working with what the community is saying. Something else that, so I send the link to the people that I knew that they were computer literate, right? So we have some friends and I sent that out. And then the other community members that I knew that needed to be reached out to, those are the ones that I went and personally had meetings with. And it continues to be heartwarming. And also very sad to see that our communities are being harmed by many systems. And all they try to do is they try to survive. And it is not, it is not their fault to not to learn the language, because they need to work. They need to provide for their families. And so what they were saying also is like, we don't want anybody to give us things for free. We want we want to have the information, and also they want to be empowered so they can access the services, and wherever they go, they can be treated kindly and with respect. So yeah, I have a lot more to say, but that's why I'm so passionate, about this work, because I see it, I trusted it, because I also had the distrust, because I worked for an institution for 19 years and I saw nothing different. So instead of going back and saying negative things about it, I just chose to be a part of a project that would make a difference. And this is it. So one point was to start the nonprofit and continue the work, but also be a part of this amazing project that is taking place, just with the work of so many kind and good intentioned people. But we are making a difference, so other people in the future won't suffer. So thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I have a question. Sonia, you referred back to what the county once had, which was a children's budget.
Yes.
And that was raising the importance of all of our children and trying to look at making decisions through a lens that elevated our children's needs, right? And what happened to that?
I believe the recession hit and it was like all down to basic things, and then it never got brought back. I believe Supervisor Joya talked about Mark DeSaulnier and him starting that, where on every, basically they, on our board order forms, every form had a children's impact line. So that every time somebody put forth a budget item, they had to fill out that part on the form. And so that's the similar idea that they're thinking about, that, an equity form part on the board order. So it's embedded into our process. And so I don't know if they're gonna, I guess, Madeline, you're sort of alluding to, are they gonna bring back the children's impact? I don't know that. I think Supervisor Joy is now focused on sort of the larger equity piece to cover everybody. Like, how does this really impact, individuals who are most vulnerable in our communities right now? So yeah, I don't know the answer to that question about the children's impact, but
I just think that it's instructive to look at how easy it was to drop it.
Yes.
Right. And how it disappeared. And it had been, I will just tell you, it had been looked at as a regional and national leader, and then it evaporated. So my concern with all of this is that, and I'm really excited that it's been institutionalized, and I think the funding from Measure X is really an important part of this. I'm not, but But I'm just saying that commitment had been there, and that commitment was not difficult to drop at that time.
Yeah.
And I worry about that happening again. I just want us to be really crystal clear and like call it out,
Mhm.
because the children that were being advocated for really were the vulnerable children. They're the ones that took the hit when it evaporated, right? So
Yeah, so that's why I think the intention by the community process to establish a co-director model and for one of them to focus on external, outward facing role, the main purpose for that is to build capacity in the community so that communities can hold the supervisors accountable, right? Because without sort of the buy-in of the community really watching the supervisors like a hawk and being given resources and capacity to be able to do that and to build the advocacy strength across the county, you're right, it can easily drop off like that. And so that's why I think the intention of community capacity building being written into the plans for the role of the office was so critical.
Thank
and
you.
I think one last thing, I just think before, there should be something there that we learn from that lesson, so that before it could evaporate like the other one did. And I'm just saying that was a big program and it evaporated. There needs to be a process here that will make sure that that cannot happen without major information out to the public, and really a conversation with the community about it. That's all. I'm just worried about it.
Mhm.
That's
No,
a
Great
thank you.
point, Madeline.
Yeah, no, thank you, Madeline, so much, because there is a section of our report, and again, this is a very long document, but it is something that the Board of Supervisors accepted and voted on, and it's a part of our accountability mechanism. And within that report, we talk about our vision for how we need to review county budget allocations from a racial equity standpoint. We have two positions that are just focused on budget. There's going to be a policy and budget analyst that, again, is going to be reviewing funds like that. And then secondly, a whole participatory budgeting coordinator that the Board of Supervisors actually accepted that they want to integrate participatory budgeting more into the budgeting process for the county writ large. So this is what we hold the Board of Supervisors accountable to, that when things like the Children's Fund comes up, that, there does need to be a consideration to the racial equity impacts of it. And so we did have a recommendation again about racial equity impact statements that is similar to the fiscal impact when a new resolution comes to the board, where there's like a statement on the fiscal impact, but there'll be the vision is to have a racial equity impact statement where they'll consider what vulnerable communities are going to be impacted by these decisions. So it's a part of our vision and intent that things like that don't occur anymore. And I also just want to put a link in the chat to a seminar we did. It was called Spatializing Injustice, where we met with Dr. Alex Shafran, who wrote a book called The Road to Resegregation, which was about housing politics in Contra Costa. And his book is all about the power structures in the county and the Board of Supervisors, and how for over 50 years, there's been pockets and groups of people who've been able to have the power to take away budget, who have the power to move industry in a certain way. And, we take seriously that history, and we're trying to chart a new path forward with budget accountability and transparency. So definitely feel you on that. And thirdly, I would say a large part of the office is data. Data matters, and we want data to inform budget allocations and seeing who needs resources, right? Because we're thinking about equity, not equality, that for the longest, many communities have been divested from, underinvested in. So we're going to need the budget to bring people up to speed at an equal level, in essence, because the outcomes and the disparities are criminal at this point. It's like punitive damages for the way that many communities are divested from. So Madeline, you're speaking to us, and that feedback is super helpful, that we know to keep that as our North Star.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have some too, but let me get to Miriam. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment that at Contra Costa Health, we are always trying to get the latest on the updates on the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, because we know that that office will heavily influence the work that our equity team is doing and just the organization as a whole. So I wanted just to share a really brief update, and I will also include it in the chat, but starting in, I want to say it was 2022, Health Services initiated a thorough evaluation of our internal equity policies and practices. We had a staff survey. Our staff is about 4,400 people, and we had about a 32 response rate to our survey. We held a series of staff listening sessions as well as community listening sessions, a couple of focus groups, some individual interviews just to understand the landscape within Contra Costa Health. That information was used in I want to say 2-3 month process of a development of a roadmap. So think about it as a somewhat of an equity strategic plan for the department. Within there, we have some focus areas, areas that we want to prioritize, and also the initiation of conversations around data, like what will we measure to ensure that the needle is moving forward, or are we regressing, or is there no movement at all? So just to say that that information was recently shared online through our webpage. So we now have an equity focused webpage. So we're super excited about that. We've been asking for that for a couple months. So it's finally online, and I'm just gonna, hopefully you see that in the chat. We have our assessment, the strategic roadmap, just an overview of what equity is currently doing or focusing on within health services. So what you're going to see is specifically focused to the equity team. This is not an exhaustive list of efforts within health services through our programs. A lot of our programs are equity focused. So just to say that it's specifically to the work that the equity team has been doing for the past, 18 or so months. So I also wanted just to plug in an invitation for our monthly historically marginalized communities engagement unit. We do meet the second Thursday of the month from 10:30 a.m. to noon. I always forward the invitation, the agenda to Consuelo. So feel free to join the next one. We hope to have a couple updates from our public information office. We are moving from Contra Costa Health Services, and there is a rebranding process in place into Contra Costa Health. So an understanding of why that is taking place. We also always feature every month an update from our Chief Equity Officer. And so we really hope that this time he will also include an update on the website and where we are with the road mapping process. And then we're also finalizing a couple of other presenters as well. So I will put my email in the chat if anyone has any questions you want to get on our list. I see Kirby's hand up. So yeah, happy to answer any questions or put them in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Miriam. And yeah, you can add all of these email addresses. That's what we do, is build up our networks and add those on there. Oh, I see Isabel may have to leave very soon. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel.
I had a couple of things. One is when you were talking about budgets, the Contra Costa County Office of Education, that's one of our big responsibilities, is looking at budgets. And I'm always wondering, how do I look at this budget with an equity lens? So I know how to do it, sort of, but I feel like there's layers to this and it's complicated and there's things I could leave out that I'm not thinking of. So maybe this office could help with that. Like, I don't know, something as simple as a checklist, but maybe more a paper that explains, here's what it looks like when you are, because we got to make those decisions. Do I approve it? Do I not approve it? Is this an equitable budget or not? You know, and I want to be able to study it and not to rubber stamp things like that has happened in the past. So that's one request kind of that I have about this effort, this work. And then the other thing in terms of schools, you know, the issues of bullying are, you know, and kids who bully, but teachers bully, and even administrators and parents. And I mean, just that whole concept that people don't understand what bullying is and how it makes people feel and the harm that it causes. And so from, you know, kindergarten on up, it's just people say, oh yeah, we have a anti-bullying program. Well, what does that mean? You had a workshop one day, you had an assembly? No, it's got to be something more rigorous. Again, I don't know what it looks like. I just know that there's a big need in our schools at all levels for that kind of thing. And then lastly, about the things that are happening in Antioch, you know, we need to unnormalize this outrageous behavior and get more upset about it and more, you know, I live in San Pablo, but I want to support the community in Antioch and ways that I can do that. You know, I know Tamisha, I know some people out there, but I want to be able to do something proactive. And, you know, Madeline and I are always, here's your call to action. So I want some call to action also in this area. So those are kind of things that come up for me that I'm hoping I can get, you know, help with. So yeah, those are my things. Those are things that were boiling in my head right now. Thank you. All right, Nell, you're got your hand up.
Yeah, I just have two kind of observations and, you know, but also questions. And it's about our schools. Like, are our school systems in our county doing the same process? You know, really looking at equity. And then especially across the county, if you compare the different school districts. And one thought in especially is in our West Contra Costa County School District, the portion that always seems to get underfunded is the adult education. And it seems to me that in terms of an equity, you know, improvement would be if we had a better funded adult education system, so that people who want to learn English as a second language, who want to learn skills, can do that within their community for a reasonable price. So I think, I don't know what the county is, the county can do anything about that, but I think that really would be very good. And then the other thought I had was in what is happening in Antioch, and having lived in Richmond, you know, since 1980, we had this awful problem with the cowboys. You know, I mean, it was an awful, awful system. But the way that got addressed was through a police commission, who was then able to hire a very good, you know, leader. And we had him for a while, and or a few years, and that made a big difference. So I think if we can in Antioch do a similar thing, you know, have a police commission with people of the community go through that process with some of their leaders, I think that could really make a very big difference. Get people within the community involved in electing the very important leaders within their communities, within their different departments. But again, I don't know how instrumental the county can be to get that movement going.
Very good, thank you, Nell. All right, any additional thoughts or reactions or comments? Yes, Madeline.
I just have one last thing that I just want to sort of piggyback on the comment about an equity lens for budgeting. I think that is a difficult tool to develop, and that it would be wonderful if the Office of Racial Justice created a tool that then could be brought to all of our cities and all of our agencies and everybody who does business in Contra Costa County, so that we didn't each have to try to develop it ourselves, because I see that happening, and there's different levels of different bandwidth in each of these agencies. But if there was an equity tool that, for example, could then be used by the Board of Education and by the county board when they look at districts who they then have to take over and approve budgets, right? That they would not only, because the County Board of Education approves not only their own budget, but if a district like West Contra Costa is now troubled, they approve that budget. It would be, I think, a very big shift if they were able to do that, or even thought about doing it with an equity lens. And I will tell you, that has never, in my years of experience and years on the school board and involvement as an adult ed teacher, no one's ever talked about doing that, right? It just is too hard. And there hasn't been the commitment to do it. But I think this may be the moment, and that would be an incredible gift if every budget in Contra Costa was viewed that way. So that's it.
And I also just want to add to that, Madeline. I think that's great. And I think that the office does want to do things like that, where they're creating templates for tools and things like that, so that other jurisdictions can adopt them. I just want to also just call out and acknowledge that we know also that the funding doesn't always start and end with us, right? That there is federal funding, there's state funding, they all come with their, you know, their rules, their, you know, for implementation, and we have to adhere to certain ways of applying that funding. So it's not all discretionary. In fact, the majority of the county's funding is non-discretionary. It comes from various buckets. And so I also just want to acknowledge that, you know, it doesn't all fall on the local jurisdictions. This is really an effort to identify, you know, where the inequities do end up falling. And then that would be a tool to help us unify, to lobby at the state and federal levels to say, you need to change the way you are organizing yourselves and, you know, deciding on how we use these funds, because this is the impact that's happening in our local communities. And this is coming from, you know, you, our Congress people, you, our state legislators, right? So it's really, I think, a big system, just like, you know, I just want to acknowledge this is also meant to be creating a bigger system loop, right? To then inform the decision-making at the top government structures. So that I just want to also, because I think sometimes when the cities or other jurisdictions see us doing this, they're thinking, oh no, everybody's going to be mad at us because we're on the ground and we're implementing this and it's all going to be our fault. And, you know, we take responsibility for what we can change on the local level and what we have jurisdiction over. And then we also take responsibility for influencing the decision-making at the top and joining with our fellow, you know, associations that are the cities and the counties and, you know, various other special districts that have their associations. Like, let's unify and utilize this information to change the way they are formatting these funding structures for us so that they serve our people better, right?
I totally agree. Sonia, that's exactly what I hope we're able to do, because like the adult ed conversation,
Yes.
adult ed money comes from the state. The state took it out and never put it back.
Right.
That's why we don't have adult ed. So that when you take adult ed money now, you're taking it from kindergartners to give it to adults. And that's not a decision most school districts want to make. But at least you can call it out and then advocate together. So I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And the participatory budgeting process is a great tool for us to have the opportunity to explain to the public how this all flows, right? And how it works and where the opportunities for change are. So I think also just that brings to mind, the importance and the advocacy for, more community involvement in our budgeting processes is going to be so important to get the support of the community and helping all of our, government structures and entities with this.
That's great. We've been talking about this for almost an hour now, and it's fascinating. I could continue on for a long time, but I want to respect people's time. We could have part 2. We could, anybody here that has information that they want to send out to the rest of the network, send it to me and just put, please share, and I will send it out to all of our connections here, so they could, because they have networks and they can send out, because it is about networking and coming together. So does anybody have any last things that they really want to get out there to express on this topic? This has been
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to everybody real quick, just to let you know, I was taking ample notes. Sonia knows I take a lot of notes. And so we're going to integrate a lot of your feedback into, our thinking and process. First, want to just shout out Miriam for your work in health services. We know you've been leading, your division has been leading a lot of these equity efforts. So again, the real vision is to get these directors hired. So at least there's some administrative support for your work and how to even make health services speak to law and justice, to general government, to really start expanding the impact of the work you're doing. And because really quality of life outcomes is everything to this racial equity work. We know that life expectancy disparities are real in this county. So it's all a part of one big conversation that everybody needs to be involved in. Just want to say thank you, Miriam. Also want to just respond, Consuelo, that we take seriously the research nationwide. So there's a lot of racial equity budget tools, that DC uses, Seattle uses, Milwaukee, but we don't want to just copy and paste what other jurisdictions do. So that is a part of our thinking, to create a tool that's very unique to Contra Costa, that's unique to our dynamics. So if you need support right now for racial equity budgeting, let me know. There are toolkits that exist that ask people on how we should be thinking about enhancements, capital projects, and certain racial equity metrics to move those conversations along. So let me know if you need that support. Thirdly, I really do appreciate y'all's attention to education. I do think the county is responsible. I think when we're talking about family engagement services, which is a part of bullying, we're talking about language access, because not many communities feel comfortable even interacting with school staff. And that's been even my experience working in schools, that language equity and making sure that there are services for that. That's a part of our vision for ORESJ, and increasing funding for language translation too, so all families feel involved. And part of our racial equity plan is to have a youth commission as well. So we want to engage the youth and do education activities, anti-racist reading clubs for them as well. So that's a part of our plan, because we know it's a hostile climate for our youth. We've been seeing it at different high schools, what's been going on the ground. So that's a part of our implementation for years 1, 2, 3. And even for things like adult education, I mean, when we're thinking about our formerly incarcerated population and really thinking about funding reentry services, a lot of that comes from the county to, reallocate some funding to adult education. So we as a community have ideas and solutions, and we just need to show up to these spaces, show up to these conversations, let it be heard, and help the county think a little bit, just a little bit. I think sometimes they get on a one-track mind, and us as kind of outsiders to the process, we are thought partners, and we elevate the thinking too, because it can't be business as usual. So just want to let everyone know that we are committed. We're in our phase 3 of community engagement for the next 18 months. Sonia and I, please reach out so we can continue these conversations. And finally, about the support for Antioch, please be looking at Reimagine Antioch Safe Return Project. They'll be coming out with a list of demands. And, letters of support are the main request from that community because they have a list of 12 demands and speaking to a lot of what y'all are talking about, oversight commissions, et cetera. So let's support their demands and support their leadership because, it's a real thing right now. And the ORSJ, we're figuring out how we are going to support the committee and the community based on what they need, not based on what we can offer. So if I'll send Consuelo information as soon as we get further, but again, keep following the lead of Safe Return and Reimagine Antioch.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. Rico, do you have any comments or thoughts? I just wanted to check in with you.
Me? No, like I honestly have been taking everything in and I think it's like a really great work what everybody's doing. And I'm just thinking about how I can apply my knowledge into helping the community here in Richmond and what can I do to kind of get more engagement with me and the people in the community, or what can I do here at the workplace or bring here at the workplace that allows me to focus on just not only the issues of the low income, but also LGBTQ youth here. Just trying to figure out what makes them feel seen more, and just what can I do to help that, help them be seen and help them take care of themselves, because I know that there's a lot of backlash in the country about transgender bands and just drag bands. So I just want to see what can I do in the community to help to show that we're here and that we're not going anywhere, while also like being safe. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was just like taking everything in, and then I kind of do want to apply what the knowledge I've taken from you guys into helping here in my community. So it's been really eye-opening, and it's great to see people really focus on bettering their community, because I want to do that too. And I'm like new here, so just trying to get in as much knowledge as I can so I can also start applying myself to the community. So yeah, it's been great hearing you guys speak.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Please come back. Please come
Yeah,
back.
for sure. Thank you for
Got your
having me.
contact information now, so you'll be contacted too.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Let me see. Oh, anybody have any announcements about their agency or I think we did a few announcements, but any last events that may be coming up or anything like that? You could put them in the chat. We will send this out to all the members, and if there are no other.
I have one, Consuelo, sorry. So our environmental health department, they are tasked with kind of overseeing restaurants, food permits, and one of their current scope of work is having a series of educational, informative workshops for local street vendors, particularly those that are like immobilized carts, right? And so they're looking at hosting a couple of workshops in West County, East County, and pockets of South County. And the focus will be, I think some of these will be in Spanish because they really want to connect with street vendors whose main language is Spanish. And so they've asked our team, the equity team, to review some of the materials that they have. Sometimes, as we know, health documents, especially with an agency like environmental health, they could be very legalistic, very heavy. As a county employee, I have a hard time also understanding that and reading through that. So they've asked us to kind of take a look at it and see their materials through an equity lens and a bit more of an empathetic lens as well. So I say that because we are considering having some type of focus group with community members that work directly with or have a relationship with street vendors. And so I'm hoping that once we get the details on that focus group, perhaps I could reach out to you, Consuelo, and through your network and see if there are individuals who would be interested in partnering with environmental health to take a look at their documents, maybe think about the locations of where these workshops could be, perhaps bring to light some of the gaps or barriers that are not being addressed in these materials, or even in the workshop. So just to say, I'm hoping that I can reach out to you, Consuelo, and through your network, and maybe we can get connected and see if we can have an opportunity to formalize these focus groups. Probably we're looking at May. We would like, I know environmental health is interested in having these workshops before the summer starts, which is like, what, 6-7 weeks away. So yeah, just to share that more is coming, and I'll reach out to you, Consuelo, once I get that information.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's very needed also. Very good. Yes, I'll do that. Thank you so much. All righty. Well, I think we are ready to adjourn today. Thank you all so much. I am just really happy we had this. It just, and now we've got so many things to follow up on. And I just feel a lot of hope when I often don't feel a lot of hope. And thank you all. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.